Now, the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, former President John Dramani Mahama, is expected to officially unveil his running mate for the 2020 presidential elections today. A National Executive Committee is reported to be in a meeting in which John Dramani Mahama will present a former Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Isaac Banama Thompson, a former Minister of Health and Deputy Campaign Manager for the 2020 elections, Mr. or a former Finance Minister, Dr. Kwabena Dufo, as his choice of a running mate, and Dr. Cadman Mills, brother of the late former President John Ebenzatta Mills, for consideration. Let's join Kwesi Parker Wilson, who is at the NDC's headquarters, for an update. Right, Parker, if you can hear me, what's the atmosphere like at the NDC's headquarters?
Daniel, currently at the NDC headquarters, there is a National Council of Elders meeting going on. And this meeting, according to my source, says that the meeting is considering the nomination by the flag bearer of the party, John Dramani Mahama, and the nomination for his running mate, as my source has confirmed to me, is Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyeman, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. So that is the nomination or the name that the National Council of Elders are considering. Now, what happens after the meeting is that the National Council of Elders will now move to the National Executive Committee, where the flag bearer himself will be in that meeting, and then the National Council will communicate their decision to him. And my source tells me that the National Council, as we speak, indeed are accepting the nomination that Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyeman should partner the former President John Dramani Mahama into the December polls. And the concerns about whether or not he has some charisma, the party tells me that the decision to nominate him actually for the running mate position is that, Prof. Mills at the time wasn't known, he wasn't a party person really, same as Professor Opoku-Agyeman, and they believe that she will warm herself up into the game and will bring some level of different kind of politics going forward into the December polls. And finally, she has a constituency of the academia, and they believe that with that, those within the academia will support her cause. And being the first female running mate as well, they are playing the gender ticket for the December poll. So these are the information I picked up from the meeting going on currently here at the NDC headquarters.
So do we know what time all this is going to be settled and finally communicated to the public, Parker?
Right, so the meeting, the National Council of Elders, I'm told that in just about an hour, they're wrapping up with the meeting. And then when they are done, then they move on to the National Executive Council. And with that, just within an hour, they'll finish. So we are hoping that by 2, the party officially communicates the running mate to partner John Dramani Mahama into December post to us by 2 p.m.
By 2 p.m., Parker. Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyeman. You mentioned that they want to pick someone who has a constituency which is academia and someone who is not a really inside political figure. What informed their choice, of these characteristics in picking a running, do we know?
Essentially, the party is not looking at the succession plan. My source tells me the former president is looking at a running mate that will end his term. And you know that the former president, if he should win the 2020 election, would only go for 1 term. And if he's exiting, he's going to exit with the vice president. Then the party will now bring in a fresh candidate and a fresh running mate as well. So that is one of the key reasons why he settled on Prof. Opoku-Agyeman. And again, whilst being the Minister of Education, she spearheaded the Mahama Day Senior High School community projects across the country. And they believe that this went down well with those within academia. His performance as a vice chancellor also as well will give her some credit. So with some of these positives, they believe that her addition to the ticket of John Mahama for the 2020 election is a done deal and would advance the electoral fortunes of the NDC in the coming election.
Crazy Parker Wilson, thank you very much. Keep an eye out on things that will come back to you when we have more. Dr. Ali Duseidu, Senior Lecturer, Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, and Head of Political Desk here at Joy News, Evans Mensah, emphasized the need for the NDC to make a choice that will resonate with the largest number of voters and one who appeals to young people.
There are specific and generic criteria that you can use to select a running mate. The first thing has to do with the fact that the running mate should be able to work with the flag bearer. So the vice president should be able to work with the president. So I don't think a flag bearer would choose a candidate that he or she would not be able to work with. So there should be one, an element of compatibility. Then two, that person should have a little bit of governance skills. Because as a running mate or a vice president, you are just a heartbeat away from the presidency. So you should have the skills to manage the country in the absence of the president.
Right, Dr. Seidu.
Then three, he should a potential match, not just choosing a candidate that is going to partner the flag bearer, but in the event of anything, that candidate should be able to lead the party into subsequent elections or next elections, whichever comes earlier. So that person himself should be a presidential material and should have a constituency within the party. Is very important. Now, when you come back to the specifics, there are several ways that a running mate can balance the ticket of the flag bearer. In the history of the Fourth Republic, we've had about 4 or 5 balancing elements. One, ethnicity. People always choose their tickets to choose candidates to balance their ticket based on ethnicity. We have regionalism. That is the region that you come from. Central regionalism is also of gender. Gender has been coming in strongly, and then to some extent age, and then experience. But what we haven't seen what we have not put into consideration over the years is also an element of resources. If, especially in an opposition party, the candidate that is being selected to run with the flag bearer should be somebody who can also raise funds or bring a lot of resources to bear on the campaign. So when you look at these, both the generic and specifics, then you can see that Nimoy Thompson represents maybe a specific constituency. From the name, I think maybe he's Ghana from Greater Accra region. And if you look at the history of, if I'm right, if you look at the history of the NDC, they have always been a section of the party that agitates that they haven't given the Ghana people the kind of prominence that they need in the balance of ticket of the party. Moving forward, they need to get somebody who should be able to balance it. But if you look at the campaign manager,
the front runners for me have always been Professor Boche, Dufour, Nana Opoku-Agyeman, obviously, and of course we all know that Alex Mode was also being considered. Now the decision is Mahama's to make. If I've heard a lot of people say, well, Nana Opoku-Agyeman, I think Doc also makes the same point about Jane being the best fit for them. I doubt if that is as clear cut as that, and I actually disagree. It is the best decision to make for John Mahama, but again, he only has the prerogative to make. I mean, for me, why would any political party need a running mate? The central question, cut out all the noise around this. The only reason the NDC needs to make a running mate decision for now is because they have an election to prosecute on December 7th. The only consideration for me is they want to win the December 7th election, pure and simple. The constitutional issues, as in the person's ability to play their role effectively and efficiently, etc., I believe will become very relevant after they win the elections. If they lose elections, none of those things matter. So the number one thing that John Mahama must consider, and I believe it's the NDC's main consideration, is who can help John Mahama win the 2020 elections December 7th.
Can Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman do that?
Sorry, say that again.
Can Prof help John Mahama to win the election in 2020?
Yes, he can. And I was going to answer the question. You should answer that question, who is best placed to help John Mahama win the elections? You need to look back to 2016 and ask the questions, why did the NDC lose the 2016 elections? If you answer that question, then you have to fix the challenges which accounted for their defeat. Now, that question, why they lost the 2016 elections, comes with an obvious answer. If you look at the results that they got in 2016, the historical 1 million votes that they normally NDC will carry into any elections, they lost that. They lost that. In the fourth Republican elections history, the NDC had always come to the party with 5 million votes. And then plus or minus, and then if the NPP to plus or minus, you win after you account for your 5 million. They failed to bring that to the 2016 elections. It comes back to the fundamental question of somebody who can partner John Mahama to galvanize their base. Point is, the base that the NDC had relied on for decades to win elections somehow were apathetic, and this was confirmed by many of the polling that we did.
And the voter turnout in 2016. So we are looking at Nimoy Thompson and Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman now. None of them, from what you're saying, really strike me as your grassroots campaigners, your party people who have been dying a wolf for a while. What do you think?
That's exactly my point. That if any of these two individuals are in fact in the reckoning, and any of them really get the nod, I will be astonished.